What innocent thing did your parents hide from you that came back 20 years later? When I was 11, my dad told me our attic was off limits because of dangerous asbestos. For 6 years, I never questioned it. The attic was simply forbidden territory in our cramped ranch house where space was already tight. Dad would get visibly nervous whenever I asked about storage up there, and Mom would quickly redirect the conversation. I figured they were being typical overprotective parents, especially after our neighbor got sick from asbestos exposure during his renovation. Every Sunday after church, Dad would disappear upstairs for hours. I'd hear strange sounds through the ceiling. Not construction work, but shuffling and what sounded like muffled sobbing. When I asked what he was doing, he'd just say, checking for leaks, and avoid eye contact. The weird part was how he'd come down looking emotionally destroyed. His eyes would be red and swollen like he'd been crying for hours. Mom would immediately make him coffee and they'd whisper urgently in the kitchen. I thought maybe we had serious structural problems that would bankrupt us. Then one weekend when I was 17, they left for my grandmother's funeral. I stayed home because of college prep, and while looking for my old yearbooks, I noticed the attic ladder wasn't locked, the handle pulled down easily. Of course I went up. The attic wasn't filled with dangerous asbestos at all. Instead, it was like a shrine to my older brother David, who died in a car accident when I was 3. Hospital bracelets were framed on makeshift walls. His varsity jacket hung carefully on a wooden hanger. There were shelves lined with his trophies, his guitar, and photo albums I'd never seen before. A desk sat in the corner with his homework still spread out, exactly as he'd left it the night he died. On a small table sat a journal filled with Dad's handwriting. Today would have been David's graduation day. I wonder what college he would have chosen. Entry after entry, year after year. Every milestone I reached, Dad had written what David would have experienced at that same age. The most heartbreaking discovery was a photo album titled Brothers. Pictures of David at every age, with empty spaces carefully left beside each one. Dad had literally saved room for the memories David and I would never make together. I carefully put everything back exactly as I found it and never mentioned my discovery. Fast forward 20 years. My wife and I just had our first son, and I was struggling with overwhelming anxiety about keeping him safe. During a particularly bad panic attack, I called Dad, sobbing. Dad, how do you handle the fear of losing someone you love so much? How do you function knowing how fragile life is? There was a long pause. Then he started crying. Son, I've been visiting David's shrine in our attic for 24 years. Every Sunday, I go up there and tell him about your life, about how proud I am of the man you became despite growing up without your big brother. My throat closed up. Dad, I found David's room when I was 17. You what? I knew the whole time, and it made me understand why you and Mom loved me so fiercely. You weren't just raising me, you were honoring him too. He was quiet for a moment, then whispered, I still go up there. Now I tell him about his nephew, who looks just like him, about how we're keeping his memory alive. That's when I realized the most innocent secret wasn't what my parents hid from me. It was how they'd been carrying the weight of losing a child while making sure I never felt like a replacement or lived in a dead brother's shadow.